Hey there, how's it going? Today we're going to be reacting to SCP-5094. And I'm also going to be testing out my new mic, so we'll see how that goes also. Just jump right into it.
It was the year 2000, and 7-year-old Xenia Chao was like a lot of children her age, bright but ignored. She had a youthful enthusiasm for knowledge and learning, and with the right encouragement, it was obvious she'd go on to do great things. But her parents were both working 2 jobs apiece to make ends meet, so outside of school hours, little Xenia spent a lot of her time alone. She learned to cook and clean for herself, since it would often be way past her bedtime when her parents finally got home from work. They communicated largely through sticky notes left for her on the fridge before they left for work in the morning. It would be easy for someone like Xenia to fall through the cracks, her potential wasted, and get forced into the same endless rat race as her parents. And that probably would have happened if her brush with SCP-5094 hadn't changed the course of her life forever. Like a lot of parents who couldn't spend as much time with their children as they'd like, Mr. and Mrs. Chow gave Xenia occasional gifts as a way to try and make up for their absence. Mostly, they gave Xenia new books to add to her growing collection, but their 2-bedroom apartment only had so much space for books. A year ago, the family had bought.
I forgot to read the SCP's name. So this is Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse. That gives me a little more context on what it is.
Bought a new desktop computer to share. These days, this would be the answer to a lonely bookworm's prayers, but the internet was still in its infancy back then. Everything changed when her parents bought her a copy of the Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse CD-ROM. Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse was never a popular program. Produced by Shoot the Moon Software in 1999, the game sold poorly on the CD-ROM market for 5 years until the company filed for bankruptcy in 2004. But that didn't matter to Xenia. As far as she was concerned, receiving a copy of Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse was nothing short of a miracle, and she was far more right than she knew. She didn't have just any piece of primitive educational software on her hands. Xenia Chao was playing with magic. After the software loaded, a cheerful figure appeared on Xenia's monitor. This was Miss J, a stylized 2D teacher in a low-res but colorful 3D classroom. What can you learn from Miss J? Well, pretty much anything. And Xenia, as a lonely kid without many friends, had all the time in the world. She spent days on end learning from Miss J, and soon Xenia went from a bright child to a bona fide child genius. Her largely absent parents barely even noticed when their child started demonstrating an advanced knowledge of mechanical engineering and a newfound fluency in Swahili. And not only did Miss J, now known to Xenia as Miss Joyce, teach her students with supernatural effectiveness, she also seemed almost like she was alive.
That's
She was
pretty
a
crazy.
warm, calm, encouraging figure who took a genuine, personal enthusiasm.
This is another one I do not feel should be in containment. Like, why the hell is this in containment? This should be, like, everywhere. Well, we haven't finished it yet. Let's finish it. It could have some crazy-ass harmful repercussions.
In the education and happiness of her students, more than many real teachers even. But sadly, not all good things last forever. When Xenia turned 12, her family bought a new computer, and the old Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse CD-ROM was no longer compatible with the new operating system. The disk gathered dust in the closet while Xenia passed through high school and then got into a prestigious college. She received her PhD several years earlier than expected and showed such promise in her scientific field that a certain organization took notice. You guessed it, the SCP Foundation. The Foundation is only interested in adding the best and brightest to their ranks, and thanks to the tutoring from Miss J, Xenia Chao certainly fit the bill. She was assigned to the role of junior researcher, and little did she know, she was about to run into an old friend in her new line of work. The Foundation first discovered evidence of Miss J's anomalous qualities while researching a series of strange forum posts in 2012. On a thread discussing abandonware, which is software for which official support is no longer available, There were multiple reports of a so-called living character in an old CD-ROM many of them had owned as children. Seeing as the technology to use the CD-ROM was obsolete, Shoot the Moons had reportedly extremely low sales for the title, and nobody on the forum had kept their copy. The Foundation classified this apparent anomaly as neutralized. No problem. That was, until then junior researcher Xenia Chow was briefed on this particular SCP 10 years later. She remembered exactly what the forum posters were talking about, and what's more, she still had her old copy at home. The senior Foundation researchers were astounded. An opportunity to study this forgotten anomaly had just fallen into their laps, and it was all thanks.
Don't you love it when somebody has an old piece of tech that just was forgot about? Most people threw it away or something. It's like some game demos. They only existed on back in the day. You could order magazines, right? And sometimes these magazines would come with demo discs. Some of these games came out on demo discs, and they were like never released other than on the demo disc.
To their brilliant new junior researcher, Xenia's superiors ordered her to bring in her copy of the Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse CD-ROM, and then real testing began. And after rigorous examination of the software, it appears by all accounts that Miss J really is the world's greatest teacher, in spite of the fact she's a collection of pixels on a basic CD-ROM program from the tail end of the 90s. What Miss J seemed to specialize in was intensive courses. She had the ability to make students.
I just want to say the 90s had some of the best stuff. I mean, it's changed a lot, some for the better, some for the worse. The 90s had that, I don't know, that neon futuristic type, cyberpunkish type look, I guess. Like, everybody thought that's what it was headed towards.
Certifiable experts in almost any subject through courses that can last upwards of 30 hours and spread out over just a few days. But this isn't as students become so enraptured in learning that they forget accounting for their most basic needs and experience a decline in process story. Miss J's lesson plans account for regular bathroom, meal, and even recreation breaks for students. Her talents easily account for Xenia Chow's remarkable academic success. The same success that got her picked up by the SCP Foundation. Naturally, if they had a technology on their hands that could reliably create experts and geniuses with seemingly no negative consequences, the Foundation knew that Miss J and what she had to teach could be immensely valuable in their mission to effectively secure, contain, and protect other anomalies. But we're not talking about the Chaos Insurgency here. The Foundation would never start to use an anomaly for their own benefit without proper testing. So that's exactly what they did. Their experiments on SCP-5094 began at Site 15, and after ascertaining that Miss J posed no real threat to her students, they recruited a local elementary school to provide human test subjects closer to Miss J's intended demographic. The Foundation found that there were a few constraints between every lesson given by Miss J to one of her students. Before teaching the really mind-blowingly complex stuff, she would always begin with a basic primer on letters, colors, and numbers to make sure she and her students were all on the same page. Another constant was that all her students would refer to her as some variation of Miss J, with examples including the names Miss Julie, Miss Jenny, and Miss Joy. One experiment was performed on Amy Myers, a little girl from the 3rd grade. Her academic record showed she was a bright and eager student, but she was described by her teachers as being especially shy. Amy referred to Miss J as Miss Janie, and asked to be given a lesson on her favorite animal, cats. Of course, Miss J gladly obliged, and gave Amy a 15-hour lesson split over the course of 2 days, which the Foundation closely observed. By the time the lesson was completed, the results were truly astonishing. Amy demonstrated knowledge of feline behavior, diet, and physiology on the level of professional animal behavioral scientists. She became upset when the session ended and the program was switched off. having become attached to Miss J. No further anomalous effects were reported. The next subject was a student from the 2nd grade named Devon Williams. Devon had a poor academic record and behavioral issues stemming from several learning disabilities. In the past, teachers had reported Devon having real difficulty engaging with their lessons, and the Foundation wanted to see if Miss J's supernatural teaching abilities fared any better. Devon chose to be educated on the subject of trains, and was given a 15-hour course on the subject spread over 2 days. Devon had no difficulty engaging with these lessons, and after their conclusion, he displayed a level of knowledge on railway engineering comparable to a graduate-level education on the subject. Devon was so engaged.
I'm sold. I think this should be like, they should take copies of this disc and just distribute them across the whole country. Like, I would be pleased. I'd be happy as hell as a kid if I had a teacher that actually engaged with me like that. I didn't get that till high school. When I got into high school, I finally got some teachers who were actual teachers and not just there for the paycheck. Like, those teachers were a lot different than anything I'd experienced growing up.
Engaged in his lessons that he had to be physically removed from the room once the course had completed because he'd become so attached to his new teacher. The Foundation was feeling extremely optimistic about the prospect of using Miss J to train potential recruits, seeming as she seemed to be able to teach even the most difficult juvenile subjects. However, the Foundation needed to prove that Miss J could be just as effective teaching adults. For the next test, they recruited D14417, a 24-year-old member of D-Class personnel who described himself as a poor student and tested poorly on pre-screening attentiveness and focus evaluations. He was the perfect candidate for the first adult test of Miss J. To the delight of the Foundation higher-ups, D14417 excelled. Miss J made him a verifiable expert in law, and he was able to pass a mock bar exam with a grade of 310 after his course. Much like the children, he felt intense sadness once the experiment ended, stating that Miss J was the best teacher he had ever had. He's since been selectively anesthetized, released, and is pursuing a degree in criminal law with his new knowledge. Needless to say, the Foundation was impressed. The last thing they needed to know was who exactly this Miss...
Hell, it could even be used to teach adults. They should make copies and put them in colleges too. Fuck. Use them in job training, use them in colleges, use them in schools. Just have a copy of her on every fucking corner, I guess. Just a little kiosk where you can walk up to it and just be like, or I guess take the software and put it on your phone. Make it compatible with new technology.
Miss J truly was. To do this, they'd conduct an interview, and thankfully, they already had someone who had a pre-established rapport with the subject, Xenia Chow. When Xenia began the interview, Miss J recognized her immediately. She was delighted to see one of her students go on to find such success in her chosen field. Xenia questioned Miss J on what she truly was, and Miss J responded that she honestly wasn't sure. All she knew for sure was that she was passionate about helping lonely children who love to learn embrace their education. That's really all there was to it, and it appears she was telling the truth. So far, the Foundation has found nothing that hints at a nefarious motivation behind Miss J's actions. It would appear she truly does just want to help children. Xenia, touched by the kindness that this safe class anomaly showed her as a neglected child, and having now seen the positive impact that she had on children like her, thanked Miss J for all she'd done, and left the interview happy that there was an SCP out there who just wanted to change people's lives for the better. And probably all of us would be a little better off if there were more. After all, this was one of the few SCPs who changed a few good people's lives for the better. And all of us can probably learn something from the kindness and patience of Miss J. And since you're already here, go check out SCP-3999. I am the center of everything that happens to me, and SCP-2317, the Devourer of Worlds, a door to another world, for more mysterious entities from the SCP Foundation.
I'm completely sold. That should There should be copies of her placed in every single classroom, everywhere on the earth. That was SCP-5094, Miss J's Whiz Kidz Schoolhouse. I actually really enjoyed this one. Knowledge or teaching, that's something that's actually pretty close to me because I feel like people should never want to stop learning. I didn't enjoy school growing up, and then when I got into high school and I got good teachers who actually cared about their kids, that changed my view completely. I I really wish that I had teachers who actually gave a shit when I was younger. It could have been completely different. I didn't actually try till I got into high school, you know? There was just no point. It was systematic learning. But yeah, the teachers when I got into high school, they were just completely different. They blew my mind. And the principal, me and him actually ended up becoming really good friends. He told me that if I ever wanted a job, I could come holler at his brother because he runs a meat market. And well, I never did, but that opportunity was there too. He was a really good guy. His house actually burnt down when I was in high school. It's pretty sad. This was a really good guy. Best principal I've ever had. Best school I ever went to. Best teachers I've ever had. And I really wish that more teachers would be like that. Like this teacher here. People who dedicate their life to teaching, that's like a true altruist in my opinion. That's somebody who really cares about other people. I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. Appreciate y'all checking this one out, and I'll see you in the next one. And I guess I should say to please like and subscribe. I don't really say that enough, but it would really help out. I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.